If you want new fruit, you've got to change the root. Join us as we talk about cultural transformation today on Family Vision. Rob and Amy Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. It is officially fall. And as you know, I have a little bit of an entrepreneurial bent when it comes to the kids. And a couple weeks ago, Rush, our 10-year-old, came to me and said that he and his two little 10-year-old buddies wanted to start a raking business. I'm very excited about this.
Which gave me immediate angst because a lot of Rob's entrepreneurial bent with the kids and their businesses seem to turn into, well, at worst, our businesses. Maybe your businesses, but it seems like there's been somewhat of a pattern that, what's JD's business, all of a sudden, you filling in a lot of the cracks. I'm just doing admin
support.
Yeah. So my point is that I get a little stressed when I hear about the new kids' business. So
they made their little flyer and quickly got 2 contacts from the neighborhood. So they did their client visits. They have to show up to give like a quote on the yard and like coaching the 10-year-olds how to talk to the retired couple to give lawn quotes, but they did great.
But that's the other part of this. It was like an idea from Rush on Tuesday. They have clients by Friday. Sure. It was really that fast.
Well, the demand. And they're so cute. The old ladies, they're opening up their wallets. They just want to pay them.
So all of a sudden, we have something else to manage in our weekly schedule, which is
Friday.
Rush and his friends raking.
Yeah, Friday is the first raking day for them, and it looks cold and rainy, which I think is like perfect.
It's
like jump
really
in the deep end because you want a miserable raking day for the 10-year-olds to get them fired up
really going
for what this is all about. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, there was actually a purpose for starting talking about trees and raking.
I want to hear the purpose.
Because, there's a transition that we're going to make.
Good.
Because this conversation we're having today, we're going to be talking about this illustration of if you want to change the fruit, you've got to change the root. So let's dive in and talk about what we mean by that.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting the amount of times I get in conversations with other moms I know well and moms that I really don't even know that well, whether it be at the library or just out and about. And it seems like there's a common feeling out there that culture is just going in the wrong direction. And there's a lot of complaints about it, whether it'll be things you see on YouTube, social media stuff, conversations kids are having, what they're exposed to at the library, what they're exposed to in the schools, but just a general feeling that, it's a general feeling and a lot of frustration over how bad culture is. And then the conversation kind of always ends with, well, there's not much to do about it. Just like put your hands up in the air. It's like, okay, this is what it is. And so it gets gets very discouraging, but I find it so interesting how everyone seems to be able to diagnose the bad fruit. And that, I would say, is similar between Christians and non-Christians.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the fruit is easy to see. So if you think about a tree, it's producing bad or rotten fruit. We say that fruit's bad, that fruit's rotten, and it is for sure. But like saying the fruit is bad in the culture doesn't change it. And even if you picked all the bad fruit off a tree, that tree is going to keep making bad fruit because the tree is bad. Mm-hmm. So if you actually want change, you have to go down to the roots.
Correct. One really good example of this is just the issue of dating and guy-girl relationships. A lot of people come to us with questions about how do you raise your kids with these issues? How do you handle it in this culture today? I found it really interesting that a few years ago, Lainey and I watched this documentary on dating, and there was a professor from Boston College that had really put a lot of research into this. And what I found so interesting, she kind of talked her whole class, basically asking them how many of them had ever asked someone else on a date, asked someone on a date, and most of them said no. But she asked how many had, engaged in kind of what a hookup would be, like a hookup at a party where you would be very physical with someone without knowing them very well. Well, most people in the class raised their hands. So how interesting that we got here. Like, what happened? There's obviously good and bad. Her whole point was it's not like dating was a perfect system, but she was basically saying it served a really good purpose to help men and women learn how to socially interact, get to know each other. And how is it that we've gotten to a point that is now so uncomfortable, but yet random hookups with
Right.
people is very comfortable and the norm for a lot of young people. And I would say even when back in the 90s when I was at University of Illinois, that was very common too. Now maybe not everybody was doing it, but I can see that it's getting worse, not better, more cultural rot. So it's kind of interesting because my parents will often talk about, they remember the culture of the 50s and 60s, that it was very normal to go out for a date, to ask people out to coffee or go get a burger. This was very typical. And most people, most of their peers knew how to engage in that behavior. And isn't it interesting now that most young people today feel like that is super uncomfortable?
Well, they actually had a conversation.
Yes, they could
had
talk
a
to
coffee
people.
or a burger and had a conversation. And we talk to a lot of teenagers and college students now that they're starting a relationship with someone, but they have not done anything yet besides text.
Right.
Like we're getting to know each other. Oh, really? Well, tell me what, well, we're texting. It's been a few weeks and that's all they're doing. Like they're not even to the point where they can sit on a park bench and look
have
eye
a
to eye and have
face-to-face
a conversation.
And even more interesting that sometimes it's usually social media that starts a relationship. Like texting is the next level. You know what I mean?
Commenting or liking?
Yes, commenting or liking or comments is the level one, and then we go to texting. And so I have to often explain to our girls, who someone is over social media and texting is very different than having a real face-to-face conversation with a person.
So again, we can see this fruit in the culture, even in the Christian culture, that we don't like. We can even identify the bad root. We can say there's been these attacks on manhood and womanhood and sexuality and family. And obviously, here at Visionary Family Ministries, we spend a lot of time talking about those bad roots that have taken hold, which result in this bad fruit. But again, it's still not enough to say, hey, there's bad fruit and there's bad roots. If we want things to be different, we need to change the roots or plant new seeds. This is connected to this New Testament principle in Galatians 6 that we reap what we sow. In other words, the kind of seed that gets planted determines the kind of fruit that we get. So part of what we're trying to do in Visionary Family Ministries is not just identify the bad fruit that's going on, but to help families, help churches, help communities plant some new seeds that will bear some new fruit. And we're doing something new toward that mission in just a couple weeks, our Thanksgiving ball. Let's talk about that, but let's kind of look under the hood of why we're doing it and how it relates to getting some new seeds planted.
Yeah, because it's trying to, I love the way you said, plant new seeds. You're breaking up ground and putting in new ideas. You're actually trying to change the root. And we really believe in that with VFM, and that is one of the reasons why we're doing some of the events that we are doing. But specifically the Thanksgiving Ball, one thing that we're really hoping to do is have, first of all, just family, all generations, socially interacting together. It's really interesting how there are not that many opportunities in this culture to bring all the generations together. Well, we bring them around worship, but we also bring them around a lot of fun and activities. And one of those things is dancing, line dancing, we have swing dancing. And the reason why we do that is not just for fun, it is intentional. One little side note on me is my love for the pioneer culture. My daughter Lissy and I share this. I think I might have brought that on.
Your mom, too. Your mom
and my
loves
mom,
it.
You're right. It's generational, this pioneer culture. But what I love about the pioneers, we read our pioneer books, is just to be reminded that that's what they were doing. They were leaving the comforts of their life and trying to break new ground. And there were just a few families that were doing it. So they were very dependent on each other. But one thing, when you read pioneer books, you see they used to kind of socialize together as families. They would pick someone's house, that person would take all the furniture out of their house, and they would have these family dances. They would have them on Christmas Eve. It was a regular occasion. It would be all the kids and grandparents and everyone together. Well, dancing served a purpose. It helped young people learn how to socialize with each other. It was a very acceptable form of activity, but one that everyone enjoyed. And interestingly, today, the culture we see around dancing is often not so great and kind of raunchy, and what's represented is not something that we would want to promote to our kids. So at VFM, when we're doing these events, and why we called it the ball as opposed to a banquet, was to get a little bit of that family excitement and to start setting new traditions and introducing new forms of family fun, which again is a way to change the root in the hopes of eventually getting better fruit.
Last week, we had our swing dance instructors meet with our volunteer staff just to sort of prime the pump. I used the example that for me, because we're going to do swing dancing at the ball, like I need to go from -1 to +1 with a pre-lesson. And even for our kids, right? Ray was there, our 14-year-old, and he was, not entirely comfortable, right, with...
And I kept encouraging him to ask one of the other girls to dance, and he was obviously not wanting to do that.
Understandably so.
But again, this is a prime example of how there's just not many opportunities for Ray to learn some certain social skills that even when I was a kid, there was a little bit more of that. I had square dancing, at least in gym, every year. But my point is, again, where do we expect our kids to learn some of these things and new habits that can help change the culture? We can start even if we can't change the broader culture, we can do intentional things as families to create new culture. And when you get other families that are like-minded in that mission, that is a wonderful place that then you're moving forward that ball as far as changing community and being able to start new traditions.
Right. Well, your little slip up there a minute ago was great.
What?
You said there's just not many opportunities.
I didn't say
You did,
I
actually. And the way that she got Ray to do this, and she said, Ray, I will give you $50 if you will do this dance. Well, of course, that perked him up because tying back to the entrepreneurial spirit, he has learned if he sits on the sidelines.
That wasn't really supposed to come out in the podcast. I was desperate. I kept raising the ante.
Hey, he danced. He danced with the instructor lady.
The instructor, he tried, but he didn't. Yes, he did ask the girl. The girl then said no, I think. But
Hey.
I haven't actually paid up on that yet. I think
paid
you
him.
knew. Oh, you did.
I paid him instantly. I was so proud of him.
Well,
Everybody
there
wins.
we go.
It's a win,
there we
win,
go. I always
win.
like to tell parents, sometimes those are worthwhile investments. It's just like I paid JD $100 to do choir. That's well-known fact.
Which
And
he
it
questions
serves-
whether that was worth it. But
okay,
it's
we're going
beside
to have
the
an
point.
argument right here on the podcast. It's very worth it.
No, he questions. You don't question.
No, but now
He
he's doing
questions.
leading praise and singing and everything with
He
his
is.
new fiance.
I'm saying it worked.
Okay, we need to let this go
All
now.
right.
So
We want you to join us for the Thanksgiving Ball. If you're anywhere near Illinois, November 12th, Sunday, November 12th at the Abington in Glen Ellen. This is going to be a unique, amazing evening for all the generations of your family. You can get all the information at visionaryfam.com/ball. Visionaryfam.com/ball. Get the info, get your tickets. You are going to love it.
So as we close today, we do want to ask you, what can you do to work at changing the root so that you get better fruit? Is it in your community? Is it in your church? Is it in your family? Well, we just want to leave you with that question. Let's not just complain about the fruit we
Right.
are seeing, but pray and ask God to help us. How can we change the root?
And as always, we want to hear from you. We'd love to hear your responses to today's episode. We'd love to hear prayer requests from your family. You can email us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. And thanks to our audio producer, Todd, with Gap Digital, and our video crew, Duncan and Ryan, with Swim Media. That's Swim with a Y. And we're looking forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.